Val Kilmer, rest in peace. Uh, so obviously this is like a day late, and I'm sure everybody else posted their Val Kilmer things immediately. I didn't have a Val Kilmer movie or review ready, so I did logically what everybody else does, which is why when you look at movie charts like the Apple Store charts, movies start trending with an actor who's recently passed away. Like when Gene Hackman went, there were like 20 of his movies were in like the top 100. So with Val Kilmer, his movies start trending even really early in the morning. I looked at it, uh, yeah, like it was like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or something, like the morning of. Not even every news source. I was still getting push notifications after that were saying Val Kilmer passed away at the age of 65. And already he had like four or five of his movies had encroached into the top 100. So yeah, it's the thing. It's people come into and they look for something because they want to celebrate, memorialize the actor, which I've done before. I for major talent, I watched Fools Rush In with Matthew Perry. For David Lynch, I watched Mulholland Drive, just as some examples. So for Val Kilmer, he has a movie and it makes absolute sense. And if you watch something else, great. That's all you and perfect. But I had to watch Val again. I'd already seen it. It's on Amazon. It's an Amazon Studios release in conjunction with A24, and it does have audio description. Um, and it's this wonderful documentary that shows that Val Kilmer, throughout his whole life, has basically been filming it, and um, we get to go really have this intimate look into Val as who he is as a person. It's narrated by his son Jack Kilmer, who's reading sort of like for his father's voice, because Val had uh, lost the majority of his voice um, due to throat cancer, and I mean he had a little bit of a speaking voice, but as we experienced for those who watched Top Gun Maverick, um, but not too much, and so Jack Kilmer uh, stood in for him and read as if he was his father. So if you watch Val, you get to see his life growing up, his interest in film from a young age, and how he would run around with a camera. And he would film with his brother. He lost his brother early in life. His parents split up. What that was like for him to have to be living with his dad. His dad was the one that got custody, because back in those days, it was a lot easier for men to get custody because, well, they were the ones that had jobs. So if they wanted custody, they got custody. Uh, you know, mothers, housewives, frequently just didn't have jobs, so it was hard for them to get custody. There was less of this alimony stuff that was happening, and more of, well, sorry, you obviously can't support or raise a family. So, and uh, he, he grows up and he gets to go to acting school and learn from great acting coaches, and he starts off in live theater and talks about that, and his transition into film, into Top Secret, which I totally forgot about. I made like a note on my personal social where I was listing a whole bunch of Val Kilmer movies, just so I remembered off the top of my head, and I left off to like Top Secret and Willow, and this movie reminded me that he was in Top Secret and Willow. I was like, ah, shit, my bad. Um, and it kind of goes through the greatest hits of the ones that he wants to talk about. I do kind of feel like there were some that I wanted him to talk about more. And then that's the thing, that's sort of always the problem with Val that I have as a film and not as a person, is just, uh, I mean, he talks about how he loved Brando, which is, it's a great narrative because he ends up getting to actually work with Brando in Island of Dr. Moreau. But he also got to work with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Heat. And I feel like that's not mentioned enough because for somebody who came along as a rising actor in the 80s, um, I would think being in Heat would have been a huge moment for him. And we just kind of breezed through it. We just kind of like, there's like a scene that's shown from Heat that acknowledges that he was in Heat, and we just kind of move on. And we do that with a couple films where we just kind of jump and leapfrog them, even though he's working with talent that was around when he was, a lot of actors are like this. You work with people, like you're not in the industry, and then you step into the industry, and then you start working with people whose work you were appreciating, who were part of the inspiration for you, um, to be in this. Even like even for me, like being a critic, and I got into critics organizations, I started seeing names that I recognized. I was like, oh my God, I've been reading you for years. I'm in the same group as you. How is this possible? Like it's insane. It, it's very humbling. And I would think for Val to have spent time with Al and Robert De Niro, um, that it would have been a much more profound experience than we get the opportunity to talk about. Whereas with some other casts, he's really coming up with his contemporaries. Top Gun, he's coming up with Tom Cruise, who came up around the same time as him. He was an 80s star, just like Val Kilmer. So I don't know that Top Gun is necessarily the answer to that equation. But, and same thing with like The Saint, his co-stars like Elizabeth Shue, and, um, so Batman Forever. I mean, Val had been acting in film longer than Jim Carrey. I don't think there was anybody in there that he necessarily would have been surprised by. So, but there were a couple other films. Ghost in the Darkness with Michael Douglas. Had he been waiting to work with Michael Douglas? I don't know. You know, um, he he breezes through Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is one of my favorite movies of his. He's brilliant in that. I love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Um, yeah, there were just a couple times where I wanted them to stop and just be like, okay, well, this is Val Kilmer. This is the moment. This is the movie. Uh, or him talking about being the interesting juxtaposition of not having a voice, but having done a vocal performance, a strictly vocal performance in Prince of Egypt. Could have been an interesting narrative. I just kind of want more from Val. Like, I want it to be more comprehensive, especially now that he's passed, and any questions that we have, they just kind of linger, and we don't have answers to those questions about, well, what about this movie? What about this movie? Um, Instead, we do get some excellent time on the set of Island of Dr. Moreau, which is, sort of like a legendarily epic failure of a production, with John Frankenheimer trying to manage uh, a film he's stepping into. He's the second director that was offered that film, and he stepped into a role, and he kind of came in and saw the film as a hot mess, and then just kind of ignored everybody who was already in it, and didn't really. And of course, the stars Marlon and Val both have thoughts and opinions and want to be heard, and they're not. So I think what's really funny is Val clearly wants to have time with Marlon, but Marlon is he's just there for the paycheck. He is just, he's so checked out of that movie. All of Val's footage of Marlon Brando it's got to be, it feels very much like Never Meet Your Heroes. Because it's like, here's Val and he's meeting his hero. He's talking about how he wants to be the next Brando, and because he takes his approach to acting very seriously, and especially with The Doors, it talks about him listening to all the music, and he learned to play guitar, and um, for Top Secret, and then they ended up not using his ability to play guitar. So later on for The Doors, he's doing all this Jim Morrison stuff. He used to do self tapes and send them in for films, and we get to see a couple of them. And I'm kind of like, I bet there's more. I bet there are more self tapes out there that he did for movies that we don't get to see. And I don't know. I kind of want a Valley extended cut. I want I want more footage from all of the other things. I want to see more self tapes. I want to know what his thoughts were on some of the films that we just kind of skipped over, and we kind of leapt frogged over. So, but yeah, it 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 shows an imperfect life. It shows a person who's reflective of choices that they made and understands the reason for things. He understands why his wife um, got a divorce, and uh, why things didn't work out. Uh, you know, he acknowledges there's been a little bit of, even some of the articles that have, uh, are in memory of Val Kilmer, have acknowledged the fact that he was an actor with a process, uh, quote, difficult to work with, that kind of thing, because uh, he employs some of those method tactics that can sometimes, you know, exasperate directors. But at the same time, he worked with a lot of the greats and ended up moving through film. And um, he, at least from his end, he clears up why he didn't do Batman, which is because he chose to do The Saint instead. Uh, and considering Batman and Robin is not necessarily remembered for being a beautiful film of staggering genius, I don't know that he kind of made a lateral move, because The Saint isn't necessarily remembered either for being like but it's possibly uh, has a better uh, a following than Batman and Robin does. I think most people who watch Batman and Robin watch it for the cheesiness of the film, whereas there might be some people who actually watch The Saint because they're like, "Oh, this is a good movie." I love this movie. This movie's really good. So, man, it's crazy that Val Kilmer, 65 and gone. Uh, I was trying to think about, like, what was the first time I saw Val Kilmer, and um, thinking about his career and thinking about how I watched films as a kid. I didn't see Willow as a kid. I saw Willow as an adult, and that would have been a film that he made that was targeted at me. I didn't see Real Genius as a kid. I didn't see a lot of his earlier work. I think the first thing that I saw him do was Batman Forever. It's like I knew who he was, but I don't actually think I'd seen any of his previous work before that. Going into Batman Forever, that would have been uh, 12 when Batman Forever came out. So I think that was it. I think that was my first encounter with Val Kilmer. And of the 90s Batman movies, it is my favorite Batman movie. It's, for some reason, it seems to feel the most like a comic book to me. It has that sort of cheesy quality, but without overdoing it, which is what Batman and Robin does. I think it goes a little bit too far into the implausibilities. I think Batman Forever just kind of found the right balance It had a little bit of what Tim Burton had built through Batman Returns, which I like better than Batman. Um, and yeah, Batman Forever is the film that hits the sweet spot. So if I was going to watch something with audio description that wasn't Val, it probably would have been Batman Forever. But watching Val and seeing his reaction, I don't think he wants to be represented as being Batman for the rest of his life. So when I think about, well, what's the greatest Val Kilmer performance, and what's the greatest movie he's been in overall? Well, that would be Heat for me. I mean, Heat has to be the best movie he's ever been in, I think. Even though I love Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick, Heat is really hard to beat. But he's also not the lead of that. So uh, I think you just kind of have to, if you're looking for the right Val Kilmer movie, uh, it's hard to do it. So it feels like Val, where he's getting to talk to you as himself and open up to you in a very personal way. And he was doing so while he was still alive, while he still had the opportunity to participate in it and show you, the behind the scenes, behind the, all the backstage stories, and explain his relationships to people and lifelong friendships, and show you wedding footage and interacting with his kids and all those sorts of things. Val ends up being a great movie in it, and I'm so happy it has audio description. So if you're blind and low vision like me, you can watch it and check it out. So, Val Kilmer, um, yeah, uh, very definitely a career that will be remembered. He has a lot of films and roles that'll be remembered. Um, and just in the 24-hour period, uh, I I had a student who was like, "Iceman is dead." I was like, "Oh man." I'm and on one way it's like I'm like, you're that movie's like twice your age. And you kind of just wonder, like, did you watch Maverick and then watch Top Gun, or did you watch Top Gun and then Maverick? You know? But it's funny how a role like that transcends time, and space almost, and generations. I love when you get in a role, when you get in a film, when you get in a role, and uh, it seems like everybody has seen it, even though uh, it's not part of their generation. Like they're actually having to go back and make a concerted effort to watch a film that wasn't necessarily aimed at them or wasn't released during their time. Um, and that's the older movie. Because I think about the older movies that I watched, that I made a point to watch, and those were always sort of like the film classics. So it's hard for me to put in perspective when I think about people coming along younger than me. Like, what do you consider to be classics? And I'm always sort of oddly amused at what they have and haven't seen, and what is considered a classic to them and what's not. Like what was considered important for them to see and what was not. So, yeah, I guess Iceman is what he's remembered for. So, uh, but anyway, that's that's my tribute to Val Kilmer. So I rewatched Val and got an opportunity to talk about Val Kilmer one last time through his own words. I mean, I'll probably continue to review his stuff. There's a bunch of films of his. Heat is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, and I absolutely intend on reviewing it this year. It's just he's not the lead of that. Feels like a weird choice. Val is about him. It feels like the movie to talk about. So I think I made the right choice. Um, the odd thing is I wouldn't give this movie an A because, like I said, I feel like there are questions, and I felt that way the first time I saw it too. It's like I just want more, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to say I want more from you as a documentary, because then it means I'm willing to sit there for another 10, 15 minutes for you to give me what it is I'm looking for, which is just more thoughts on the films. Don't breeze over films. mentions some things. What was it? What was it like to do Heat? What was it like to do Ghost in the Darkness? What was it like to do, these films that you're skipping through? Um, I want to know as much about those as I do your thoughts on Dr. Moreau. So, yeah, that's it. Um, Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.